This is part 2 of a retrospective of THQ published WWF/WWE console games. View part 1 and the announcement video for a bit more context and history. Let's continue with a little talk about Smackdown. After the release of WCW's Thunder as its second weekly show, the WWF reacted by creating another weekly show to compete, Smackdown, named after the Lay the Smackdown line given by The Rock. There was already another show the WWF had called Heat or Sunday Night Heat, but it was more of a small show, with usually the mid-carders and jobbers fighting, while the big names and storylines were on Raw. Smackdown was supposed to be the second Raw, only at the end of the week. So like Thunder, Smackdown got its own game, this time on the PlayStation to give it something with a WWF touch.
But while Thunder the game is said to be one of the worst wrestling games of all time, how would Smackdown fare? Well, we found out on March 2nd, 2000 with the release of, WWF Smackdown.
So does this look familiar? Well, it should, since it's the same engine used later in the same year for WWF Royal Rumble, even with the same gameplay, minus the tag assist feature and random stage changes. You know, one button to attack, one to grapple, one to run, and one to counter. Yet it has the feel that it's trying to emulate the N64 games with some more grapple moves available to do while the opponent is groggy and dazed. But it's back to being instant grapple rather than having a hold first like in games like Attitude and Warzone. It does change from an attitude/momentum meter to a meter that builds up the better you do, i.e. landed hits and moves and reversals, so you can do a finisher, which is a sign that the match is done since knockouts are on by default, and it's way easier to knock someone out in this game. One well-known finisher, you know, Stone Cold Stunner, the Rock Bottom, the Pedigree and all that, is usually what it takes. Create a Superstar is pretty bad. It feels so limited in the appearance section, mostly because the majority of options are from the roster. In addition, they have a new feature where you use your ability points you get during season mode to power up certain move types to get much better moves. For example, leveling up 5 power skill will grant you certain finishers like the Tombstone Power Driver. While WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy had ability points for superstars and creator ones, it was given out in the beginning when creating a new wrestler, and it was more about how you played, or how skilled you are, or how lucky you are compared to here. You have to get beefed up in order to get some wins with your created wrestler. Now season mode is interesting when you're using a created character. You have to go through a pre-season before being able to go into a real season mode. It's pretty short with about 10 matches or so, excellent for getting your character to beef up a little and get ready to grab the titles. It's broken up with the superstars giving you advice and talking about the match, and sometimes you can comment with a thanks or shut up, giving you relationships with the other wrestlers. But it's a bit weird since you are scheduled in house shows, yet you have matches on the actual shows and even pay-per-views. Then in the actual season, you still do house shows and less pay-per-views. It's just an odd choice. Speaking of the actual season, it's fine. Probably takes a while with the creative superstar for anything to happen. That is, unless you beat the Royal Rumble or possibly have a good winning streak. Now while I've said that this kind of control scheme is not that good compared to the Aki games, I've got to say, I've had some fun playing this game, much more than I did with the games that had a similar control scheme. It just feels much smoother compared to Warzone and Attitude, and if Royal Rumble had much more, I'd be saying the same for that game as well. It's not bad or fantastic, but a good start for this new series and giving PlayStation owners something worth a damn to play, so they don't have to be too envious of N64 owners. SmackDown 2 Know Your Role, like No Mercy, is an update to its predecessor, but not as much in comparison. Gameplay-wise, it's the same with no real noticeable changes. The Create a Wrestler feature feels slightly more updated even if, holy shit! Some results can be horrifying. Let's just cover this up. Perfect. The biggest change is the season mode. The good part is that it follows the real-life storylines that happened the year before, and it's cool that it unlocks wrestlers like Stone Cold and Shawn Michaels. But the problem is that official wrestlers take major priority compared to created superstars. And yes, I know it's better with the real superstars. Like I subtitled in the last video, the career and story mode is focused with the created superstars in mind in this retrospective, and in this case you won't get a match, outside of random backstage run-ins that lead to 1-minute fights. This could have used a pre-season mode like the last game to build up created superstars' popularity. If you had the chance to skip shows or could go through them faster, it wouldn't be much of a problem as I'm making it out to be. It would still be dumb, but it is tedious to go through each match and watch the meteors go down. Yeah, this segment is pretty short, I'll admit. Not much else to talk about that hasn't been told in the first game. It could be fun like the last game, but without a solid career mode, it can get boring. Nice that the production got an upgrade, but it's not great when it only applies to certain superstars. With the PlayStation fading away due to its successor, the PlayStation 2, the WWF and THQ moved the Smackdown games to the more advanced system. This led to the November 2001 released
WWF Smackdown!
Shut up, Cole. WWF Smackdown, just bring it. And what better way to introduce WWF to the new console generation, minus the Dreamcast, than with an opening with 3D models. The intros in the N64 games had in-game models with little stories in them, and the PlayStation 1 game said fuck that and showed footage from the actual program, if not the actual Smackdown intro in the first one. Here, it's polished models posing and fighting. It's cool. Now how does the game look? Oh. Yeah, it's best not to compare in-game models to a pre-rendered cutscene, but other games like Silent Hill 2 did the in-game to pre-rendered better, since in that game, it felt like the pre-rendered cutscene used polished up versions of the in-game models. Here, it's pretty night and day. This is just barely an update to the previous Smackdown games and even Royal Rumble. I mean, how do you explain moments like this? It makes it feel a bit unfinished, but admittingly, looks aren't everything. How does it play? Again, a bit of an upgrade to the first two with some ease on the commands, like the Irish whip being a bit easier to pull off. And it has hints of a grapple system, but I've only seen it when you lift your opponent up. But it's generally the same as the previous two. Also, it's a bit off that even a few minutes within a match, the wrestler can still get up almost instantly, even after a weapon shot. The Create a Superstar section seems about the same with some minor tweaks, updating from a texture for the face to a model and moving to a layer format for your stuff. But yikes! Christ, easy to make horror humans, huh? Those eyes. Sunglasses for you. And wonderful job on the glasses, good cut job. Interesting addition is a Create a Taunt mode, where you can make crazy taunts. Magnificent and graceful. So how does the new generation handle season mode? A lot better. It's okay, a bit similar to No Mercy's, but you can walk around and interact with wrestlers and other people on a time limit. It has some cutscenes for the two shows, putting one in the mood to fight. The main topic that pops up is a shot at the Tag Team Championships, which continues after winning the belts with title defenses. But after rejecting the same offer after losing them, I immediately got a chance at the main title, and after 3 matches or so, my guy is the champion. which is a problem since it doesn't feel like a major struggle. But if you win big matches, win championships, and defend them, you can unlock more stuff like arenas, matches, and custom options like moves and clothing. I do find this game as a good update, but still a bit lacking overall. It's fine, only to get repetitive without better content / stories.
On the way to the ring, Terrence Guardia.
WWE Smackdown Shut Your Mouth was next in the annual series in 2002, continuing on the new trend of being named from part of a Rock catchphrase. But you may have noticed something different. I said WWE, not WWF, and that it just has a W, not one fused with an F. Well, that's because of the change to the brand hat. The World Wildlife Fund sued the World Wrestling Federation with the fact that the initials belonged to the Wildlife Fund. They had an agreement in '74, yet it was used until 2002. What changed then? Who knows? Maybe to help show that there's sports entertainment for the dumb kids that jumped off sheds to do moonsaults. So they had a promotion that still matched the Attitude Era, Get the F Out, all to get people ready for the change from the Federation to World Wrestling Entertainment. It went so far to the point to bleep or edit out any mention of WWF and blur the old logos for the longest time. Hell, another game, Raw for the Xbox, was released around this time, having copies with both WWF and WWE on them. Luckily it calmed down in recent years and they don't have to edit it out at least as much. Anyway, the game. Like the games before it, it's similar in feel to the previous one, but a bit eased up on the gameplay. Matches can actually last a while on average rather than just a few short minutes and just bring it, even with a wrestler with high stats. The graphics got a bit of an update with it looking much better in cutscenes. Speaking of, the story mode got a big upgrade. It's focused on you fighting week after week rather than random days and then the pay-per-view. The timeline mimics the events of WWE at the time, which after the acquisition of WCW, they had a storyline about the brand, and later ECW, evading the WWE for control. After that, they had such an expansion of superstars on the roster that they decided to split it with the two shows having exclusive rosters using a draft, which starts the story mode. It continues on with you possibly following the major stories if you do good enough and win matches. The big ones being NWO and Hollywood Hulk Hogan, similar to his actual match with The Rock. Outside of a few things here and there, it feels like a true time capsule of that period in wrestling, to the point that they've nailed Vince McMahon's Poison promo, one of the better promos in my eyes. It continues to have stories continue with the second year after WrestleMania, a thing barely seen with story modes of other wrestling games during the time and even after in some cases, but we'll get to those soon enough. You wander around similar to Just Bring It, but minus the time limit. It's neat to wander around the area and among Times Square as well, encountering other wrestlers for one-off meets, random backstage fights, or whatever. Even encounter the general manager for title shots if you do well enough. They create a wrestler as well, looking more polished with you not creating horrible looking human faces. They're actually making people here. This game overall feels like an update that Just Bring It should have been, with it transitioning from the PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 2. Finally, a well-deserved step for the franchise. How could they make it better?
The following contest is scheduled for one fall. On the way to the ring, the Warrior.
Okay, this is the best game ever. And last but not least, we have the 2003 release Smackdown Here Comes the Pain. Wait, Here Comes the Pain? That's not a catchphrase coined by The Rock. What's going on? Yep, they took the last SmackDown game, the series being named after the show that was named after a Rock catchphrase, and then give it a subtitle linked to another wrestler, Brock Lesnar to be specific. Well, he was big during his original Beastly run at the time. Man, as time changed when he came back and basically did the same thing. Anyway, the game. The gameplay has updated the grappling system, giving you better accessibility to different moves via where you point the analog stick or directional pad while first grappling, segmenting to either powerful moves, quick moves, i.e. faster and possibly weaker moves, submission moves or those that target specific body parts for submission, and signature moves, i.e. the more flashy moves or, well, the moves that can define a superstar. All can be set to whether animation that will be fitting for any wrestler. A huge improvement for a match, otherwise there isn't too much of a difference in this issue. Same with Creative Superstar mode. Yeah, it feels a little weird at times when your Creative Superstar is standing around with established wrestlers in the story mode cutscenes. I don't know, sometimes it can look a bit off, but it is all in all another polished job. Again, you have a set amount of experience points and has to gain more via Season mode. Speaking of, dear God, Season mode is a gem and one of the reasons this game is remembered fondly. It has a regular story feel similar to past wrestling games, mainly just bring it and shut your mouth, but it also has a sort of meta subtext to it. It's a bit hard to explain, but you get asked for certain things like going on a tour or creating a faction, but it's treated like the stories are real like wrestling games prior and after this title. Yet with some of the random picks for wrestlers for the stories, you can battle people for different reasons and it gets odd, like having Kurt Angle wanting a rematch after WrestleMania for the title. Okay, but it turns into a handicap match where I lost my title to another Creative Superstar, and then having to fight off Kurt again, but this time for the tag team belts. Superstar points like in Shut Your Mouth are rewarded via matches, which is basically your wrestler's popularity and can determine how much you do. One problem is that if you don't do well or not a title holder, you can get lost to a lack of booking in the middle of it until you get an offer for story possibilities. Along with Superstar points, you, again, gain experience points and money for movesets, alternative attire for wrestlers, Diva loading screens. Yeah, nothing to see here. Unlockable legend wrestlers like Roddy Piper and Old School Undertaker are also available for purchase, but give them silent WrestleMania 3 style entrances. Oddly enough, for some reason, you can't have Old Undertaker and Biker Undertaker take place in Season mode, only one at a time. You can interact with other wrestlers and hire staff prior to matches, but instead of wandering around like in Shut Your Mouth, it's limited to a few selected spots. It lacks the feel of exploration, but it makes up for it by saving so much time in case you wander around just to find out no one is out and about. You can do different choices that can gain you superstar points and or experience, or some neat interactions. Oh bro, you took my title, now you're getting a good diva? God damn, man. It's stuff like this and the stories themselves that make the season mode very replayable, the many choices you can get and possible different outcomes. Like with this one about getting a manager. It always ended well, but with making the same choices I usually did in the past, it ended badly this run. Maybe because I was a heel this time. It's eyebrow raising that while I have him as a face, I've done some heel actions, yet it treats me like I'm still a face at times. Also, plenty of times you can find yourself fighting guys backstage leading to this. So many times. This game has a few bumps, but it's so well made that it makes it hard to just play it only for a while and drop it. It's very replayable with the season mode with many storylines being original or referencing the past, and the gameplay is so well tuned. I honestly thought this would be more gushing since it's obvious why so many fans see this as one of the best wrestling games. The Smackdown series is purely one fine example of updating and improving a series of each installment, from the simple quote-unquote arcade-like feel of the first, all the way to the more in-depth nature of Here Comes the Pain. Some hiccups, but it came out ending with gold. And with the PlayStation having the Smackdown series, what did the other 6th generation of consoles have? Well, next time, we return to Nintendo and experience 2 WrestleManias and 2 Days of Reckoning.